So it is week 1 of the NFL season. It's between bets. We're going to help give you our best plays of the week. And, while we want to get excited, while we want to go head first into the betting streets, because it's been so long since we've had real professional football to gamble on, over 7 months, I do want to, approach this with a word of caution. Like we're going to learn a ton this week. I mean, who would have thought just in the collegiate betting streets this past week that Florida State would just run Alabama out of the building, right? Like crazy things can happen. There's not actually, I actually need to give, this is the annual Steve shout out. Steve couldn't make the program tonight, but he did tell me not to bet the Alabama money line parlay. Like I had a couple places there. So shout out to Steve. But just with that in mind, like let's have fun here, but let's also bet with caution. Let's not go too crazy in the unit allocation. Stick your cards close to the vest. But with that said, Eric, I'll turn it over to you first. Let's get into the ATS money line. What is something against the spread that you're looking at potentially getting down on as we speak?
Man, Seth is out here preaching a word of caution, and rightfully so, but I'm out here in mid-season form looking for a home doggy, and boy, have I found one. The Chicago Bears getting 1.5 against the Minnesota Vikings. I'm always a sucker for a home dog. I'll take a long look at them, even if they should clearly, rightfully be an underdog, but I don't think that's necessarily the case with the Chicago Bears. Obviously, you look at these two teams' records from last season, and it would seem like they are miles apart, but with another offseason championship for the Chicago Bears, not the least of which bringing in new head coach Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be very, very competitive. This is obviously a Minnesota Vikings team that their head coach is very familiar with their offensive tendencies and how they like to defend his game plan in particular. So I think they'll be very well prepared. And moreover than anything else, I am always looking at an opportunity to bet against a rookie quarterback making his NFL debut. And while he might be a year removed from being drafted, this will be JJ McCarthy's NFL debut. So to get 1.5 in that circumstance at home, this one feels like a clear no-brainer for me.
It's one that, while I feel like the Vikings will likely win this game, it feels like EV value, right? It feels like getting Chicago at home against a rookie quarterback making his first start. It makes all the sense in the world. We know no Jordan Addison for this one for the Vikings. They just brought Adam Thielen back and probably knows this offense pretty well working with KOC before, but definitely a lot of question marks there. And I don't think it would surprise anyone if the Vikings did slip up there in prime time early in week 1. Tyler, throwing it over to you for your favorite ATS pick this week.
Yeah, I'm taking Jacksonville. Now, when I saw the odds, it was -3, but -3.5, I'm fine with. Look, Liam Cohen is coming in, and you're talking about somebody that took a Baker Mayfield that was being passed around the league like a sandwich that nobody wanted to take a bite of, right? And he turns him into a top echelon quarterback. And then you go to Jacksonville, you give him extra weapons. You give them a Trevor Lawrence, a huge arm. They invested in the offense. They've got a few great running backs. I think it's wheels up for Jacksonville. Like they're going to shoot off. And Carolina, I don't know about you guys, it doesn't feel like anything's really changed. Like they didn't really hammer the offensive line to make it that much better. Adam Thielen gets shipped out and they think, Coker's going to fill the gap. Coker gets hurt and now they re-sign Hunter Renfrow. So they're reaching for talent on that roster to try to fill it. And I just think, outside of, Chuba, they're going to have issues scoring, especially because Jacksonville's defense, they invested early in their defense, and they've got some of the top linebackers. They've got a great pass rush. I just don't see a world where Jacksonville doesn't win this game convincingly. And maybe I'm just not in on Carolina, or I'm still, I don't know. It just is. To me, this is easy money.
Yeah, it's super interesting because I will say, like, Tedero McMillan, let's not forget him. He can change the dynamic of this game. But at the same time, I liked him a lot more when there was a veteran like Adam Thielen drawing some coverage off him, or even a talented guy in his second year coming out of Holy Cross in Jalen Coker. working out of that slot. So it will be a mix. I don't think Hunter Renfrow is going to draw a ton of eyes out there in the slot. Of course, we'll have Xavier Legette, but I think Jacksonville is very much live to cover this spread. If I could get it back under a touchdown, if I get it in -2.5, if I could tease that down, I think I maybe would. So excited to see what the Jags can unload here in week 1 in the Liam Cohen era. Let's go to the total markets. And for me, one of my favorite picks of the entire slate is the New York Giants against the Washington Commanders. I'm going under 45.5. Really was surprised to see this total this high up here. I got it -108 at FanDuel as well. So under -110 a little bit. You always like to see that. But I think if we're going for the type of game where we could see a little bit of struggle out of some offenses, I think this is the game. So this really is a fade of both the Commanders offense, and I'm kind of touting the Giants defense here a little bit as well, because the Commanders have had a ton of changes on the offensive side of the ball. 2 new tackles, Laramie Tunsil and rookie Josh Cornerly coming out of Oregon. We have a new wide receiver 2 in Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin, and we've talked about him on the show plenty. Eric and Steve and I's opinions all differ whether we care about him missing training camp and the preseason. I do a little bit more. Plus, no more Brian Robinson Jr. in the backfield. We don't know if it's going to be JCM. We don't know if it's going to be Austin Eckler, Chris Rodriguez, Jeremy McNichols, as I like to call him on this particular program. But a lot of question marks there, man. And what I don't have question marks about is this Giants front on their defense, man. Sexy Dexy, Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns. And I also don't think anyone's going to say Russell Wilson is really striking the fear to you if you're betting this over. So for me, Giants were under 64.7% of the time last year. That was the lead best. If you're betting unders last year on the Giants, you were cashing. Conference games 75% to the under, division games 67%. So I'm going 1.5 units down here, hoping for a low scoring affair in the nation's capital. Eric, you also have a under in the totals market.
Yeah, also looking at another division rivalry here with San Francisco heading up to face Seattle and the 12th man in the Pacific Northwest. I've got this one going under 45.5. You mentioned the stats. Typically, we see division games be a little bit closer and a little bit lower scoring in nature. But if nothing else, you look at these two teams, and these are teams that have legitimate questions about their depth at the wide receiver position, right? You've got JSN and the corpse of Cooper Kupp and a bunch of rookies and unproven assets on the Seattle side. And basically everyone that's ever donned a uniform for San Francisco is either suspended or injured in their wide receiver room. It's going to be Ricky Pearsall. Maybe we get lucky and see Jawan Jennings, and probably some Marcus Valdez-Scantling, who's a cast-off, couldn't even make the team on the other side of the field, the Seattle Seahawks. So This is all to say that I think from a personnel standpoint, the passing game is going to struggle. And from a scheme standpoint, two teams that very much so prioritize the run in terms of how they build out the rest of their offense. So I think we're going to see a lot of carries on both sides of the ball. And we're going to see a lot of time ticking off that clock. And I think we're going to see them come under 43.5 by a pretty good margin.
They might be calling back Old Faithful Michael Crabtree, best wide receiver in the league, baby. Best wide receiver in the league. They might need him at some point soon. Tyler, take us into the money line market where you have not one, but 2 underdog money lines you're ripping out here in week 1. What do you have for us, man?
Yeah, so one, I love those calls, and I'll touch a little bit on that San Francisco game later when we get to parlays. But, as far as money lines go, so there's 2 there. First is the Falcons. I'll go Detroit first. Sorry. Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. This Lions offense is essentially the same, if not better, right? Another year in. That defense was a young defense last year and continued to only get better. And they're getting their primary pass rusher back. To me, and I know Green Bay just got Micah Parsons and everybody's hype and all the lines show its hype.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's fine. One thing that the Lions make sure that they have is a good offensive line. I know they lost their center, but their center's not going to be the one blocking Micah Parsons. So either way, I'm excited about this game. I think the Lions could beat them. I think that Green Bay is still trying to figure out their receiving core. They're trying to figure out how that's gonna work. And I don't know, like to me, the odds just I like the Lions in this game.
Okay. All right. And then also a Falcons money line pull for you.
Yeah, the Buccaneers just lost their OC, who's changed everything for them. And while I do think Emeka is an excellent add in the place of Godwin, they also lost their top tackle. So who knows there, right? But the Falcons, man, the Falcons offense last year, as Penix came in, looked electric. They invested in that defense. The pass rush for the Falcons is going to be another level from what we saw, and their defense was not awful last season. So, this game, I think that Tampa goes in, and I think they're a little bit cocky about it. But I think it is very, very, very much a possibility of a Falcons upset, especially if Penix gives us any glimpse into actually being able to get that ball downfield. Even you got Bijan, like it's that offense is primed, their defense is primed. Like I'm a little worried that Falcons era may be trying to make a resurfacing, and I don't want that to happen. But man, they're doing a good job of building a team.
Well, the Falcons are in a spot right here that has been super profitable for sports bettors in week one historically when you're looking at these home dogs, right? So I do like the Falcons play. Detroit, I think your analysis is spot on too. Like I think the Packers are definitely overvalued. I mean, we saw a 600-point swing just in their Super Bowl odds with the Micah Parsons deal. We know he's probably going to have to take some type of injection to get out there on the field. Probably not going to be at 100%. This is a defense that has been coached up and is schemed well, but I think it will take him some time to get acclimated there. So, Eric, you also are thinking a potential home dog pulls an upset out there in Las Vegas.
And I told you I've got a type, and that type is home doggies. The Las Vegas Raiders are getting 2.5 points on the money line, which equates over to a plus 130 number on the money line. I think I mentioned the spread earlier. And I really like how this one shakes out for the Raiders in particular, right? Like this is a team that by record and by several statistical measures was already better than the New England Patriots last year. And then they went out and made, in combination, the biggest improvement to their quarterback and head coach and play caller in all of the offseason. Tell me one team that made better gains in all three of those departments. Yeah. I'll wait because you can't do it. So I think that people are thinking that this Raiders team is going to be a doormat this year, and they absolutely are not. I think this offense is going to be very effective with Ashton Genty back there and what Chip Kelly can scheme up. We're talking about a quarterback and Geno Smith that can very much so take advantage of play action and is not afraid to uncork contested catches and downfield balls. And we're looking at a New England team that might be without arguably their best defensive player, that being Christian Gonzalez, working his way back from a leg injury, not even practicing quite yet at this point in the week. So there's just enough here to where I think this should be a little bit more of a pick'em type of situation. So to get plus money for a Raiders team that is much improved at home is exactly the type of wager I'm looking for.
All right, well, let me take you into the player props market, and very interested here in a DeVonta Smith over 54.5 receiving yards. Right now, there are a ton of boosts. There's a ton of free no sweat bets out there right now at FanDuel, at DraftKings. I used a 50% boost for Thursday night football to get this up to plus 132 at FanDuel. I went 2 units down on this, and this is the one way I want to get invested in this opener, because I think the Cowboys kind of are live to win. Like if you want to sprinkle a little bit on that money line, I understand. But I think what the Cowboys will lack in pass rush will actually really help Jalen Hurts open things up in the deep passing game. And before last season, let's not forget that DeVonta Smith was a guy who really liked to stretch the field. Traditionally was kind of one of those deep target earners in this offense. 11.9 yards ADOT in his first 3 seasons compared to 9.1 with Kellen Moore at the helm. Trayvon Diggs, we know him. We know Bland out there for the Cowboys at cornerback. They're very, very aggressive guys. I mean, Deron Bland, Trayvon, they've always been going after various interception records. I think they could get burned by Smith, by A.J. Brown deep. And let's not forget, too, Trayvon Diggs coming off that ACL tear. So Smith hit this line in 4 straight games to open up last season and 6 out of the first 7 as well. That was before the Eagles became incredibly run-centric, and I don't know if DeVonta Smith ever got fully healthy after missing a couple games as well. So the last time he faced the Cowboys, he went for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. I just need 54.5, and I'm getting this over. So that is how I'm going to start out the player prop market, and I'll throw it over to you, Eric, for your first player prop.
Yeah, I'm looking at one of the games that I think is actually going to be kind of interesting overall, but probably my favorite way to get exposure to it is by the Alvin Kamara receptions line, currently sitting at 4.5 at our friends at DraftKings. You can get a -105 price to take the over on that, and that is precisely what I will do. If you look at the game environment itself, the Cardinals are the 3rd biggest favorite to open the NFL season in Week 1. They're laying between 6.5 and 7 points, depending on your book of choice. And you look at Alvin Kamara, and everything is pointing to the type of circumstance that you want him to have. Last year alone, in games where the Saints were trailing, he was averaging 7.3 targets relative to 4.6 in games where they were tied, or points where they were tied, or they were leading. And you also look at Spencer Rattler under center in those 4 games that he played last year, probably many of them games where they were trailing. Alvin Kamara's targets also spiked up by a full 2 targets, from 5.8 to 7.8. So very clearly, in circumstances where the Saints are trailing, Alvin Kamara is getting peppered with targets, and I like him to convert at least 5 of them into receptions in this week.
Yeah, that'll bring us to my parlay of the week, +138 FanDuel. I want to stick in this game. First leg here, it is the Cardinals money line, -290. It is a lot of juice to drink for an NFL Week 1 game, but Spencer Rattler, 0-7 as a starter. He's lost by an average of 17.6 points in those games. And I'm not overly high. I'm not smoking that Cardinals pack or anything coming into the season, but at the same time, they have a ton of continuity. They added some really nice pieces on their defense. Josh Sweat they brought in free agency. They added Will Johnson to shore up that cornerback 2 position as well. And the leg 2 of this parlay, it's the Alvin Kamara. Instead of the receptions total that you're going with, Eric, I'm just going to go over 28.5 receiving yards, -114 for my second legs. This gives me +138. So kind of like a skinny parlay, if you would. But Kamara averaged more than 10 yards over this last year, 38.7, had 55 and 58 receiving yards per game in the last 2 Spencer Rattler starts. We're going to see a ton of checkdowns. We're going to see a ton of dump offs to Alvin Kamara. He's going to be plenty involved here. So I'm kind of tailing you with the Kamara play. And I think if the Cardinals are out front, the Saints are going to have to chuck it a lot. And Kamara will be a main beneficiary to that. So, Tyler, I'm sending it back to the player prop market for you. You not only have a player you're interested in betting straight up, but also someone you're adding to your parlay of the week.
Yeah. So do you want me to go my prop and then the parlay, or just go straight parlay?
Put them both. Yeah, put them both out
so
there.
My player prop of the week is Travion Henderson over 67.5 rushing and receiving yards. Look, this guy's electric. Okay, in college, sharing the backfield, still had had 1,300 all-purpose yards and 11 touchdowns. He's an absolute stud. We saw it in the preseason, 100-yard kickoff return.
Yeah.
And they only gave him 5 carries. And he still averaged over 7 yards a carry in preseason. But the fact, if you look at the narrative, right, the fact that they only gave him 5 carries, right, lets you know there's a plan for him.
Keeping him fresh.
They're not worried about seeing what he can do in the preseason. He's going to get instantaneous work. And he is miles better than Ramondre Stevenson. And so to me, this line is not tough. Rushing and receiving, and especially, it's not like the Raiders let Spillane walk. It's not like this defense is just going to be, a booger. So I really like this line, and I think that it could absolutely carry. And then getting to a parlay, back to what you said, Eric, I think I'm with you. I think San Francisco is a roll the clock, like let's run the football, let's not push it. And so, pairing that Travion over 67 and a half yards, all purpose with a Christian McCaffrey over 72 yards rushing on a very depleted Seahawks defense, I think is a stellar call. And then, and then pulling from both y'all's book, and I wouldn't even, so some sports books will allow you, but I wouldn't even mind going over 28 and a half and over 4.5 receptions just to give my odds a little bit of a bump. But even without that, if you just go 28 and a half yards receiving, Christian McCaffrey over 72 and a half rushing yards, and Travion over 67 and a half all-purpose rushing and receiving yards, you're looking at a plus 561.
Wow. I like that. I really do. I really do like that. I think we just had Tyler. Did Tyler freeze for you as well, Eric? Okay, you're back. We're good. We're good. We roll on. We roll on here. No, I like that ticket a lot, Tyler. I think that's one I actually might have to tail you on that. Those other two legs, because I think whether it's that or like a CMC anytime touchdown, I think playing into that narrative that there aren't a lot of great weapons out there for Brock Purdy to deal with can get you a nice payout. So plus 561 for Tyler's parlay of the week, plus 138 for mine. Great job on the bets this week, guys. I do want to round out the show, though, with our touchdown calls. It's a new addition to the IBT podcast. You can make your touchdown calls. We'll have a leaderboard next week where everyone can get in there. You can also, if you want to get involved in the touchdown contest, you can join the IBT family. The link is in the episode description. You can also go to in-betweenmedia.com and join our community from there. You're going to get access into our memorabilia giveaways. You're going to get access to our exclusive Q&A Discord show as well. And you're going to join the conversation with our viewers and our analysts in our Discord. You're going to get picks and our touchdown call contest. The rules for the contest, it's simple, boys, and we're not breaking the rules. So listen up once and once only. 2 touchdown calls per week. One of them can be minus money. One has to be plus money. So you can't be betting Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley every single week. And you can only use a player 2 times per season. This is going into the Super Bowl, so you'll need roughly 40 picks, but you can use at least a player more than once. I thought 2 was a good number, and we want to go over that. So, Eric, give us your 2 touchdown calls for this week, my friend. What's going to get you on the board and get you that absolutely sweet plat coming from Dynasty Decks?
Man, so you said that I have to avoid a negative money player, or at least one has to be plus money, and I'll parlay that. I'll double down and make them both plus money. My shorter odds are Mike Evans to score an anytime touchdown. That's actually plus 110. I really like that price. I would think that he would actually be negative money if you thought about it in a vacuum, with the number of pieces that they're missing, with his history against this Atlanta Falcons team in a game that is projected to score a fair number of points. Love getting him at plus money. And arguably my favorite of the 2, David Njoku, plus 230 to score a touchdown. I mean, look, this is going to be a game that should also score up, but one that is going to be very lopsided, right? The Browns should be playing a fair amount of catch up in this game. But also you look back to his time with Joe Flacco from a few seasons ago, and his receiving scores went up by almost 60%, right? Like, this is a guy that was a favorite target of Joe Flacco's, that was getting heavily targeted and heavily involved in games where Flacco was starting. That plus the game script, I love the plus 230 price for Njoku to find his way into the end zone this week.
All right, Tyler, you got to get on the board here. You don't want an 0-2 start to the season. Who are your touchdown calls for week number 1 in the IBT touchdown call contest?
I was late to this, so I'm still debating on my running back call that I'm going to place in. But I'll start with I think my go-to would have been Kyron Williams.
Okay.
But I do really very sneakily like the Texans defense this year. I think that they have a really nasty front 7, and I'm really excited about that. So I might actually pivot this one and go with Chris Rodriguez anytime touchdown going into this game. Look, if we're gonna, you said we can only play somebody twice a season.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use it up right now for Chris Rodriguez because halfway through this 3-4 games in the season, we may be seeing a lot of JCM. Like,
True.
who
Yeah.
knows? But it was very clear that they were happy with Rodriguez. Like, and when he had the ball, especially doing the Brian Robinson Jr. like role, he looked good. Like just running the football up the middle, like he looked good. He was able to break contact. And I think that when they get into any type of goal line situation, if it's not Jaden Daniels, it's Chris Rodriguez. Like I think that they're going to let him,
a bad call,
slam that thing home. And so, I won't use my Kyron touchdown this year. This week, I may go ahead and go with Chris Rodriguez and use a Kyron touchdown maybe when they play Seattle, which I think will be an easy call. But I think that this one could really pop, and the odds are super favorable. And this is actually a bet that I'm probably going to roll with this week. Play at plus 240 with Chris Rodriguez on anytime touchdown. And then the next one is T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins could easily hit the end zone this week. The Bengals are going to survive by offense. Like it's not like the defense is good. They're going to have to survive by offense.
You got no choice.
And you've got Denzel Ward's most likely going to be on Chase, and Higgins has a knack to just get open in the red zone, and he's going to be facing cornerback number 2, which is it's not like Greg Newsome is just like, not good, but I think that T. Higgins can easily land a touchdown here. I think he's going to have to land a touchdown in this game. Not that the Browns are going to necessarily move the football or they're going to do anything extravagant. I just think that they're going to score based on how bad the Bengals defense is, and the Bengals they're going to do what the Bengals do, and that's play offense. Where they spent all their money, all their salary cap is tied up in their offense. That's one of the reasons they won't. They probably are not going to re-sign Trey Hendrickson long term, even though he's a sack leader last year. I like T. Higgins to get in the end zone, especially at plus 150. It's solid for me.
Yeah, I like that as well. The only thing I don't like is you almost broke the rules right away. You almost gave us 3 touchdown calls, but you talked yourself out of one. So I appreciate that. And the Chris Rodriguez call, I like that as well. I think that is a sneaky play. We'll see if it's him or Austin Eckler who would get those carries, I would think, right off the bat. So we'll see what happens there in that one. For me, I'm keeping it pretty simple here in week 1. Give me Derrick Henry anytime touchdown. Minus 140, though, at FanDuel. What a great number. We are never going to see minus 140 again. You will never see a line under minus 150 again. If you even wait till closer to the weekend to bet this, they're going to have an anytime touchdown boost for 50%. You can get this closer to even money. So I'm all in here on a guy who I'm going to put multiple units down on this one, because he scored a touchdown in 78.9% of games last season, 11 straight games to start the season, 4 straight to end the season. He scored 3 touchdowns in 2 games against Buffalo. I'll gladly take that in a game that's projected a total of 50.5 points, the highest on the slate by 3 points. I want invested in it, and I'm going to get invested with a Derrick Henry anytime touchdown call. And then bring it up, baby. Here we go. Tyler Warren, sticking true to my word. Look, the job is on the line for Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen with the benching of Anthony Richardson. They have to prove that they got it right with their big man, get him involved. They spent a top 15 draft pick on him this season. And last year in week 1, we took Wan'Dale Robinson on an anytime touchdown. Well, who was his quarterback at that time? It was Daniel Jones. He's bringing the good vibes here in week 1. I think Warren will see similar usage in that short to intermediate role. And also maybe we get a little tush push action as well. AR on the bench. So they might need to dial up someone big in the red zone. Why not a guy who's done it before in Andy Kotelnicki's offense down in Penn State? Caught 3 of 40 in his preseason debut. I'm expecting something similar here because, look, NFL defenses, they might just not know what they're getting into with an exciting white out here in Tyler Warren. So plus 275, love that number. Going to probably even try to boost that up just a little bit. Guys, we want to hear from you as well. We want to hear from you in the chat, in the comments after the fact, your best bet for week 1 of the season.